What's up guys, Ryan here, treadawaytraining.com. I hope you're having an amazing day, and today we're going to talk about how to build a workout program. The three most important variables to build a workout program. And every workout program in existence, whether the person that wrote the program realizes it or not, all programs are written based on these three principles. But before we get into those, let's quickly recap last week. Last week we talked about the most important factor to consider when writing your workout program, and that is adherence. Now, you know it's coming, so I'm just gonna go ahead and throw it out there at the beginning of the video and get it over with. The best workout program in the world is the worst workout program for you if you can't stick to it. So when writing a workout program, when we talk about these three variables and how to optimize each of the three, keep in mind what we talked about last week. And if you haven't watched last week's video, make sure to click the card up in the top of this video or down in the description and watch that video and then come back to this one, because I want you to keep those things in mind when writing your workout program. So keep in mind that we want the program to be realistic, we want the program to be enjoyable, and we want the program to be flexible. What are these three variables that are so important? All right, well, let's first establish the definition of each before we go into talking about each of them and giving specific recommendations. First is volume. There's a few different ways that we can define it, but the way we're going to talk about it in this video is going to be the total number of working sets per muscle group per week. So we're excluding warm-ups, so the total number of working sets per muscle per week. And then we have intensity, which is simply the amount of weight that is lifted. And then we have the frequency, which is the number of times per week that we work a specific muscle group. So let's say if we hit our chest twice a week, that would be a frequency of 2 times per week. All right, so now let's get into volume. Earlier this month, I made a video where I touched on volume as a part of another topic, and I talked about my volume recommendations in terms of total reps. Remember, I said that there's more than one way that you can define volume. So there's the way where we're going to talk about it in this video is going to be the total number of sets, but keep in mind that you can talk about it in terms of total reps per muscle group per week. We want this to be easy to understand, and we want this to be something that you can immediately take action on. So we're going to simplify it, and we're going to talk about just number of sets. And the studies that I've been reading recently suggest that as long as the effort level is similar, so for example, if you did 3 sets of 4 to failure, that's going to produce similar muscle growth results as if you did 3 sets of 10 to failure. Even though it's a lot different in terms of how many total reps, they actually produce similar muscle growth. So getting off of that tangent, let's reel it back in and let's talk about specific numbers for volume. There is a dose response when it comes to volume. And what I mean by that is every time you add in another set of volume, it gets you, that much more results. They go up in a 1-to-1 fashion. You add in a little volume, it gets you a little bit more results. A little bit more volume, a little bit more results. And they follow each other perfectly to a point. And that point seems to be about 10 sets, 10 total sets per week. And then after that point, you're still going to get more results by adding more sets. It's just the fact that the extra results you get from those extra sets is going to start to be diminishing. You're going to get diminishing returns for the extra work you put in. So as before, you put in this much more work and you get this much more volume, and it goes up in a 1-to-1 fashion. Well, it starts going up, 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 and then once you get around that 10 weekly sets mark, it starts to taper off and it starts to move like this instead of like this. What we want to do is we want to do at least 10 sets per muscle group per week. And if you're a beginner, I would actually recommend you start at that 10 set mark and just stay there until your results start to plateau, and then add in a little bit more. And then go until your results plateau again, add in a little bit more. On the upper end, where we see that the results start to flatten out to where the point where we're adding more sets in and it's not necessarily giving us extra results out of it at all, seems to be about 20 sets per muscle group per week. And I say about because this is going to be individually dependent. There are some people that can handle more than that 20 sets and keep getting results off of that. But there are also going to be some people that, will stop getting results a little bit shy of that 20 set mark. So if you've plateaued and you're not at that 20 set mark, then the safe bet there would be to just sprinkle in a little bit more volume. And we'll talk more in a later video about more detailed ways to progress our workouts to ensure that we get results over the long term. This video is going to be about setting up the initial workout, and we'll work on progressing it in the next video. Now let's talk about intensity. A moment ago I said that as long as the number of total sets per muscle group was the same and they were at a similar effort level, then you were going to get similar results out of it. Now you might hear that and say, well, what does it matter how much weight I'm lifting if that's the case? Well, I mean, if I want to lift heavy, I'll lift heavy. If I don't, I don't. The key here is that strength is very rep range dependent. If you want to be better at lifting heavy weight for low reps, so let's say you want to be an Olympic lifter or a power lifter and you need to be good at doing 1 rep maxes, if that's the case, then you need to do heavy sets at low reps. Whereas on the other hand, if you want to work more towards muscular endurance, then you might want to do sets of say 10 or 15 or so, because your muscles are going to be growing either way. As long as we have these tough sets, the number of sets are the same and the effort level is the same, we're going to be getting similar results there. So it really becomes a question of, do we care more about strength or do we care more about endurance, or a mixture of the two? So you'll need to do, more low rep sets or more high rep sets depending on your answer to that question. If your primary goal is strength, then I would recommend you spend 2/3 to 3/4 of your time in that 1 to 5 rep range, and then spend the rest of your time above that rep range. Whereas if your primary goal is muscle growth, then I would recommend you spend 2/3 to 3/4 of your time in the 6 to 12 rep range. And then the rest of that that's left over, you can spend in the higher, the 12 plus rep range, or you can spend in the lower, the 1 to 5 rep range. That's up to you. Lastly, if your primary goal is muscular endurance, then you would spend 2/3 to 3/4 of your time over 12 reps, so the 13 plus rep range. And the one caveat that I would give you there is, we don't necessarily want to go over 30 reps, because over 30 reps, the results that we get in terms of muscle growth tends to fall off. So keep it between 13 and 30, 2/3 to 3/4 of the time, and then the rest of that time can be spent in the lower rep range. Lastly, let's talk about frequency. Studies have clearly shown that working a muscle group 2 times per week is superior to working a muscle group 1 time per week. Now, as far as if even greater frequencies than that, so 3, 4, 5, 6 days per week is more beneficial than 2 days per week per muscle group, that is not quite as clear. I would feel most comfortable giving you the recommendation of working each muscle group 2 to 3 times per week. So why is it that 2 times per week is superior to 1 time per week? Well, one example that I can give you that'll make it pretty clear pretty fast is, think about the last time that you've done a workout that was really, really long for one muscle group. So let's say it was a chest workout and then you did 20 sets or something ridiculous in one day. So a really, really, really long workout on one muscle group. Think about how you were feeling towards the end of that workout. You probably weren't able to produce a whole lot of effort towards the end of that workout. You probably weren't lifting a lot of weight. You probably weren't putting a whole lot into it by the time you got to the end of that really long, exhausting workout. Whereas if you were to take that same amount of work and divide it into 2 separate workouts, then the second half of that workout where you weren't putting forth as much effort and you weren't able to lift as much weight, you take that second half, chop it off, and put it on a separate day, and in between those days you've had adequate rest and nutrition, then you're able to go in there and crush it again for that second workout. And that second workout is a lot more productive than if you were to have had it at the end of that first day. So to wrap all of this up into one neat little summary, for volume, we have 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week. For intensity, it's really it depends on what your primary goal is. So if you're going to be working mostly in the 1 to 5 rep range, if your goal is strength, you're going to be working in the 6 to 12 rep range. If your primary goal is just muscle growth, and then you're going to be working in the 13 to 30 rep range if your primary goal is muscular endurance. And lastly, we wrapped it up with frequency, and the recommendation there is to work each muscle group 2 to 3 times per week. In this video, we laid out mostly a baseline from where to start from. And in the next video, we're going to be talking about how to progress each of the 3 variables that I just laid out. We're going to talk about how to progress those to make this into a long-term workout program. Thank you so much for watching the video, guys. Drop it a thumbs up if you liked it. Leave a comment down below giving any suggestions for future videos. Let me know what you thought about this one. If there's anything that I left out that you think the people should know about, then leave that down below as well. I will be back Sunday on the Treadaway Training Blog to talk about this same topic in more detail, so make sure to join me there. As always, God bless you and your family, and I'll see you Sunday.